This podcast is a proud member of the Unidentified Network.
So now, ladies and gentlemen, live and in colour, it's Mr. Wayne Lovejuice.
The other day I produced a Louis, had a chat with an interesting chappie who said that the YouTube algorithms really aren't that happy. If a channel only broadcasts once a week, so we decided we could text ya whenever we've got a piece of news in our new book on the track Xtra. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Downs, and welcome to another episode of On the Track. For those of you who don't know, every Wednesday evening at 6:30 for about a quarter of an hour, and every Saturday afternoon at 3 for about twice that, we bring you a mishmash, a miscellany, a melange, a mixture of hard science, weird shit, and surreality. What's surreality? Well, I'm afraid you're going to have to ask Otto von Bismarck.
I do not know. Stop asking stupid questions.
In last week's episode, you will remember that our guest was Ve Macrinnon, explaining something that happened to him about 40 years ago in a river on the south coast of Dorset. He continues the story today, and the reason that we are giving so much time to this is that usually when people tell me of an encounter with an animal, I know roughly what they're talking about. But on this occasion, I truly cannot identify the thing that V tells us that he saw. So I'd be very, very interested if any of you watching this can let me know what you think. Enjoy.
Like the tail on the ground, the rest of it was snaked up like a cobra. And I was thinking, well, how the hell is it staying upright? And it just kept hitting, and then it lunged at me. And it tried to sort of snake its bottom bit up close to me so it could strike at me. And when it did that, I jabbed at it in the face with the tent pole and got it in the face, and it sort of glanced off to one side. But I realized at that point that the tent pole was incredibly lightweight compared to this animal, because it was a lot heavier than it looked. And it clearly had some extremely heavy-duty muscle power. So all I could do then, when it swiveled back and started trying to bite me again, was just start whacking it with this fairly lightweight tent pole. And I kept hitting it just below the head. And then I caught it one right across the face, like that, trying diagonally across the face. And it let out a bigger hiss, and then it backed off, and then it splashed down in the water, and it swam maybe about 18 foot down river, and then it suddenly popped back up and did the cobra thing again. And I thought, well, all right, then it's backed off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back off to that other side of the riverbed, and I'm going to climb out. So I started backing off over there, but once again, the fact that I was backing off seemed to have the opposite effect than you would imagine it would have, and it started snaking its way back up towards me like a cobra again and trying to bite me again. So I started smacking into it again with this thing and trying to kick it with the waders, and that seemed to go on for ages. I don't know how long that lasted, but it was an absolutely terrifying ordeal. And it went on for, it's got to be at least 30 seconds. And I was starting to run out of steam. I was starting to run out of oxygen in my blood because I was obviously breathing fast. And I was putting a lot of exertion into whacking it with this incredibly lightweight aluminium tent pole. Wasn't having much effect except just parrying it when it put some muscle power into coming at me. In fact, I was hitting it just in time, just at the right moment, would sort of parry it to one side, and it was struggling against that. If that hadn't been the case, then I would have had its teeth sunk into me. But it eventually stopped what he was doing, hissed at me again when I hit it, and then sort of flopped over backwards back into the water. But this time it went upstream. And I thought, Christ Almighty, what are the chances that something like it seemed to me from its actions that it was acting in a way as if it had higher consciousness and it had a sense of vengeance, rather than it just being something that thought that there was potential danger in this creature that had interfered with it and just trying to make that creature go away. Because every time I tried to go away, it came back at me and came back into a dangerously close proximity to me to attack me. So I have no explanation for that at all. I've never seen that sort of behavior in any animal at all. Well, I've seen it in kangaroos. I have to be honest. I have seen it in kangaroos where they seem to have a sense of vengeance. I've never seen it in any other animal. And then I started to climb out again, and I got about halfway up the bank, and I had this splash behind me, and the bloody thing had come back down the river again after it had already gone at least 30 foot up the river, and now it was coming back down again. And this time I thought, oh well, I'm not going to let you just come up behind me and just bite me in the arse or bite me in the leg or something. So I turned to face it, and the weird thing was it didn't continue swimming past me. It actually came up. It came out of the water. It didn't have to. It wasn't like it was only about 5 or 6 feet away from me. It was about 8 or 9 feet away from me, and there was fairly deep water there that it could easily have passed by me and continued downstream. But it didn't. Decided to come back out and attack me again. And so we went through the same thing all over again. With, whacking it with fairly unuseful defense tool, and it hissing and trying to bite me, and until we both ran out of puff, and it sort of dove back into the water, and then I saw it swim off back down, and I thought, right, I'm going to make a scramble for it now, because it's going to take it a couple of seconds to turn around if it is going to come back. So I really started to scramble, and I just got over the top at the top of this bit of the edge of the river, like this is this sort of overhang of soil with grass, and I just got my legs swung over that when the bloody thing came back to the bank and was looking like it was going to come up the back at me. So I kicked some rocks down at it, and they sort of bounced down around it, and that made it panic, and it went back in the water, and it went downstream at that point. And that was the encounter over, and it was absolutely terrifying, and I still have no idea what it was till this day. It didn't seem to have fins, but it seemed to have some fish aspects, but it seemed to have some snake aspects to it too, and I'd never seen anything like it before. I'm pretty sure it had scales, but then that's a common thing between reptiles and fish, so it doesn't really get us anywhere. It did have the ability to mimic its environment skin-wise with chromatophores. a bit like an octopus. So that's weird as well. It had a wide mouth, and the teeth, as I said before, there seemed to be teeth that looked a bit shark-like, like sort of pointy, triangular, long, elongated triangular teeth that are very sharp, like a shark's teeth, and also those hook-like ones that are really sharp and vicious looking. You see when you see pictures of fish from the Marianas Trench in the darkest water, you see the faces of those things. It was rather reminiscent of that. But yeah, that's what happened, and I still don't know what it was, but it was in the River Brit in Bridport, and it was, I think, just if you look at it on Google Maps, see that they've built this sort of marina thing. If you come up the river from that, there's a sort of an oxbow turn, and then you follow it around and then go up again. Then you'll see these little white dots in the middle of the river. It was about that point where all those rocks are at high tide. Because at low tide, there are even more rocks. The whole place is absolutely full of rocks.
Hearing you telling me that story again, there are a couple of questions I haven't ever asked you. First of all, how
You've
wide...
frozen now, John.
Sorry? Can you hear me?
You froze. You started. Yeah, I can now. But when you started to speak, you froze for about half a minute.
Okay, it doesn't matter. We can always edit that out. How wide was it? And what was the
Okay.
sort of girth of it?
Probably about that, about 9-10 inches wide, and about 7 inches high.
And was the
You know the way that
sorry, please carry on.
you're breaking up again.
Carry
No,
on.
I was just you know the shape of you know the shape of British sand lizards' tails?
Yeah.
It's like a roundy square in the cross section. It's like a roundy edge cornered square, isn't it? Well, this thing was a bit like that, but if you pinch the two upper roundy corners into the middle, then it was that sort of domey shape in cross section.
Sounds like a stollen cake.
Like a what?
Stollen cake.
I don't know. Don't know what that is.
You do.
So I don't know that
German
one.
Christmas cakes. Never.
Oh, sorry. I thought you're picking up a bit, and I thought you were referring to some sort of sea animal.
No, as far as I know, you can't get marzipan-filled cakes in the sea. But you never know. The world is an extraordinary place. Was the girth uniform all the way, or did it taper off towards each end?
No, it tapered. It didn't taper towards the front. Well, only where the head was concerned, but at the back end it did. But and that was a weird thing at the bottom end of the tail, it seemed to have sort of finnage, but I couldn't see any other fins on it, or at least I didn't notice any other fins on it. It might have had other fins, and it might have been holding them close to its body so that they wouldn't get injured in a fight or something. But I didn't actually see any other finnage on it at all. Just a sort of finnage like structure at its tail that it was standing upright on.
Well, I've got
I didn't see
no idea what it is.
gills, but again, it could have had gills. but they might have just been closed. But it seemed to me that with the amount of energy that it put into attacking me, and there were no gills functioning or anything, it might have been something that, if it was a fish, it might have been something that's adapted to breathing air. And that would also explain why, if it was a fish, it was effectively on the bank. It wasn't actually the bank of the river. It was the stony area above the water line, and it was in direct sunlight, like it was basking, which again you wouldn't expect a fish to do.